Chapter 5. It all starts in high school. Once the Talpiot program got off the ground and had refined its selection procedures, it began to make a name for itself as an elite unit. Today, 36 years after the program began, the IDF's website describes the exclusivity of Talpiot. The program accepts 50 outstanding students from those in the science tracks in high schools. Competition for admission to the program is fierce. Ron Berman is an Uber student who not only was accepted to Talpiot's 19th class, but also has been educated in Denmark, Tel Aviv University, the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School, and is currently studying for his PhD at the University of California, Berkeley. This student of students advises anyone trying to get into Talpiot, it all starts in high school. Many of Israel's high schools are actually dedicated to helping their students get into elite technology and thinking units like Talpiot. One initiative in Jerusalem was designed specifically with Talpiot in mind. The Israel Center for Excellence Through Education is run by former Talpiot commander Avi Poleg. He uses many of the techniques he perfected at Talpiot and shares them with schools run by the state throughout Israel. The center is integral in setting the curriculum and helping to run one of the few boarding schools in the state of Israel, the Israel Arts and Science Academy. The school shares its campus with the center. Students admitted to this elite program are already extremely talented, but the school is designed to help them focus on mathematics, chemistry, physics, and computer science at a higher level than they could get at a state-run school anywhere else in Israel. Some students commute from the Jerusalem area, but most live, sleep and eat in dorms. The teenagers at the school come from more than 100 diverse communities in Israel. They come from large cities and small towns, from kibbutzim and agricultural communities, and the program is open to both Israeli Jews and Arabs. The Israel Arts and Science Academy and the Israel Center for Excellence Through Education gives students the tools they need to learn better and faster, just like Talpiot cadets. Poleg's teaching methods are the same as they were in Talpiot. We don't direct students to a certain point. We want to prep them with the abilities and values and talent to cope later on with challenges. Talpiot's philosophy of how to promote independent thinking, curiosity and motivation is relevant here. When asked, how do you implant curiosity and a desire to learn in a student? Poleg answers, you're asking for the whole Torah on one leg, as Rabbi Hillel once said. The famous sage was once asked if he could summarize the entire Torah while the questioner stands on one leg. In a nutshell, it is developing study units that will pull students into an adventure. We don't start by saying today we are going to learn about this or that. We start with a legend or story. We try to put the student in a position that stimulates the situation. We tell them, this time you'll be a historian, a scientist, a detective. Students should learn under different hats to keep it interesting. It is a way to build tasks in a moderate way, putting much of the responsibility in the hands of the students themselves. The teachers are not supposed to be the source of knowledge, but rather facilitators of the learning process. That means they are there to guide the process and instruct slightly, to let the students come up with their own conclusions, to let them fail and not correct them too early. The teachers should ask many questions but provide few answers. Answers should come from the students. There are clear differences between a boarding school and a military base. While the end goal is the same, implementation isn't identical. But Talpiot rules and methods do hold true. Poleg sees it as his responsibility to strengthen independent abilities and self-esteem. I deeply believe that once you teach a learner, you will harvest the results later on. Some might call the Israel Arts and Science Academy a prep school for Talpiot. Admission to Talpiot is always in the minds of the program's students and teachers, and they've sent more than their fair share on to Talpiot's success. Nachshon, a similar program for high school students, later became prominent. It was founded by Eviatar Matania of Talpiot's 6th class. The program is named for the valiant biblical figure Nachshon ben Aminadav, the first Israelite to jump into the Red Sea before the waters parted. While Nachshon's students are not necessarily Talpiot candidates, several cadets have come from this prestigious program. In Israel, many of the top high schools align themselves with top universities, either formally or informally. One of Talpiot's earliest feeder high schools was a school called Handasiim. Handasa means engineering and geometry in Hebrew. It used to be closely affiliated with Tel Aviv University and has sent Talpiot some of its finest graduates, including Eli Mintz. He recalls, "I was recruited to Talpiot after the army received a recommendation from the principal of my high school at Handasiim. 5 people from my high school class went on to Talpiot. Overall, Handasiim has sent a high percentage." Another prominent graduate who went on to Talpiot is Ophir Kraoz. The principal at the time was Yochanan Eilat, who turned it into a tech powerhouse. He used to take a map of Silicon Valley and put it over Haifa and tell everyone, "Look, a perfect fit." That was in 1988, long before Silicon Valley was something everybody in the world knew about. He was a real visionary. While Kraoz was in high school, he and many other future Talpiot students were so far ahead of their instructors in computer science, they wound up teaching the classes. As the world adapted to computer-based life, teachers had trouble keeping up at first. It quickly became clear the tide was changing throughout the globe as students began teaching the teachers. Yet a big advantage emerged at Handasiim in these years. Many Russian immigrants with very sophisticated education couldn't find work at their level in Israel, and so many became teachers at Handasiim. The school has since moved and now stands in the town of Herzliya, just north of Tel Aviv. The principal today is Orit Rosen. Handasiim furnishes so many recruits to top army technological units because of the multitude of projects the school offers, which is unprecedented in the country and abroad. There is a diversity and high level of scientific work, including a combination of various disciplines: computer science, technology, medical science, and more. Today, more includes robotics and facilitates for students showing an early acumen for satellites, aerospace, and biotechnology. In Haifa, not far from the Technion, is a high school named Leo Beck. Students are accepted from all walks of Israel life. Many pay some tuition, though about 10% are on full scholarship. There are forms of assistance for other students as well. The mission of the school is to provide a pluralistic education for its students who come to the school from all over the northern half of the country. There are about 1,000 students and 150 teachers, a ratio just about any school in the world would envy. Leo Beck set a modern-day record in 2005 by sending 5 graduates to Talpiot, including Marina Gandlin, who later became an early pioneer in short-range missile defense and the Iron Dome. In Jerusalem, a prestigious public high school, also known for supplying Talpiot with numerous cadets, is known simply as Liada, which translates to next to in English. It gets its name from being next to Hebrew University. Israel is a country where kids have to grow up fast so they can contribute to the security and well-being of the state early on. And the Israeli high school system is actually so important that it has become a major source of fundraising overseas through programs like Friends of Israel Sci-Tech Schools. 73 high schools fit into this special category, where the focus is on robotics, engineering, nanotechnology, biomedical engineering, aerospace and computer science. These schools have not only educated scores of Talpiot cadets, hundreds of their other graduates have gone on to provide important security solutions and become Israel's high-tech business leaders. A strong spirit of giving back permeates Israeli society. Many executives who have attained the highest levels of Israel's corporate hierarchy have established ways of helping the country, its students and future leaders. Former Israeli President Shimon Peres has initiated one such project. Over the last several years, the popular statesman has been helping Israeli high-tech CEOs meet and mentor the nation's most promising high school students through a program he helped found with the charitable organization the Rashi Foundation, designed to encourage Israel's teenage inventors. He has enlisted the help and support of many of Israel's biggest corporate leaders, including Sami Segal, who runs Keter Plastic, one of Israel's biggest companies and biggest exporters. Segal encourages his employees to get involved in mentoring future leaders as well. One of these employees is Barak ben Eliezer, a man who could not possibly be more focused on bettering the state of Israel. Selected for the Talpiot program in 1992, he was part of the famous 14th class whose members founded the storage company 14 and sold it to IBM for $300 million. Two of Ben Eliezer's Talpiot connections have also dedicated a good part of their time to helping young, enterprising minds. Uri Rokni develops algorithms for an Israeli company called Mobileye. He's working on greatly improving the safety of driving by putting high-tech anti-crash systems in the cars we drive. The company listed on the Nasdaq stock market in August 2014, and the stock quickly soared, becoming the darling of Wall Street. In his spare time, he volunteers to help increase the level of competence in math in Israel's high schools. Uri Barenholz graduated with Ben Eliezer's 14th class of Talpiot. He went from data storage to biological engineering research at the world-renowned Weizmann Institute in Rehovot, Israel. For fun, he teaches physics at a junior school in Holon, a suburb of Tel Aviv. Some of the students he teaches, like the talented young scientists being graduated from specialized high schools, will set their sights on advanced university degrees. Many will aim for admission to Talpiot, for they know that it is the stepping stone to the best university education, the highest army accolades, and a promising future. Chapter 6: The World's Fastest Learning Curve. From the start, the Israeli army and founders of Talpiot knew that they'd need to outsource some of the educational aspects of the program to Hebrew University. Most Israelis don't start at universities until they are at least 22 years old, 4 or 5 years later than most students in the United States. Most Israelis are discharged from regular army duty and then go to see the world. They go to India. They trek through Nepal. They escape to Thailand. In fact, there are so many Israelis in part of those countries that street signs, stores and hotel markers are in Hebrew. One shopkeeper in India was shocked to find out there were only about 6.5 million Israelis. He thought that since his town was constantly overrun with men and women from the Jewish state, there must be hundreds of millions of them. Other young Israelis go to South America for months at a time, hiking through the Andes. Many go to both Asia and South America. When they return to Israel, they may register in one of Israel's 9 universities, many of which are world-renowned, including Tel Aviv University, Ben Gurion University of the Negev, the Technion in Haifa, and of course Jerusalem's Hebrew universities. Others might go to one of several dozen colleges in Israel. But because Talpiot cadets serve at least 9 years in the military, they immediately begin studying for their academic degrees at the age of 18 when they enlist. When they finish their coursework at Hebrew University, they have their bachelor's degree in mathematics, physics, and/or computer science. This advantage gives them peace of mind, knowing that they won't have to start their studies after they're out of the military. When the army is paying for you to study, however, you don't have the luxury of falling behind. In Talpiot, if you drop back, you'll get kicked out. Speed has always been an important part of the program. Because Talpiot students get fewer weeks to study than their university counterparts, the academic program moves faster. One reason for that is simply because the cadets are in the army and they have other things to do. Another reason is that the army is intentionally training the cadets in how to think faster. There is no magic to making a student learn faster. The way it is done is to emphasize group learning. The thinking is that if you're with other cadets in a military-like setting, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you bond. When part of the group moves faster, the rest of the group will keep the pace. The speed of the coursework is much quicker than at a regular university. The cadets train and learn as a class. Academic competition is not part of the program, and there is no cheating in Talpiot. Many of the professors allow students to share work as they encourage cadets to help one another. The thinking is that as each cadet brings different kinds of strengths from different backgrounds, integration is greatly encouraged. That emphasis on teamwork helps create high levels and higher speeds for development and for learning the course materials. But sometimes that speed can be a problem, and the 25% dropout rate attests to the challenge. Even some of the top Talpiot recruits who went on to become some of the most successful Israelis of all time have complained Talpiot's coursework moves too fast. Marius Nacht is a co-founder of Israel-based Checkpoint Software Technologies. Their internet protection software defends almost all of the companies in the Fortune 500 from web-based attacks. Nacht is a graduate of the second class of Talpiot. He was born in Romania while his parents waited anxiously for the Romanian government to grant their family exit visas. In the 1960s, Romania held its Jewish citizens hostage. If they wanted to leave, the Jewish Federation of North America had to cough up a $5,000 ransom for every exit visa. His parents had started the immigration process a decade before the paperwork finally came through. Nacht was 3 years old at the time and does not recall his first days in Israel, but he does remember growing up in a rough, industrialized part of the coastal town of Ashkelon. He says his family's situation gradually improved to the point where they were eking out a middle-class existence. Back then, standardized testing wasn't exactly part of the norm, so Nacht's family didn't realize Marius had a special academic gift, and neither did Marius. His father insisted that he attend a vocational high school, a place where he could learn a trade. Marius attended ORT, one of many programs funded by the global Jewish community. He says, "I wasn't interested in it. I was doing what he told me to do. We studied many things, including electronics." In 1980, an army recruiter came around looking for the brightest students. It was rare for the army to look beyond the established high schools in the major population centers of Jerusalem, Tel Aviv and Haifa. And it was even rarer in those early days for the Talpiot program to recruit someone from outside of those areas. But from Marius's class, 2 students were selected for Talpiot testing. Marius was intrigued by the exams. Acceptance in Talpiot meant more to him than just the opportunity to be part of this new and exciting part of the Israeli army. It meant he had been absorbed by the country he moved to as a boy, that his intellect had been recognized, though he came from the depressed town of Ashkelon, a town often ignored by Israel's established elite in Jerusalem, Tel Aviv and Haifa. But once he was in the program, he wanted out. The other guys were very, very smart in terms of math and physics, and I was not at the top of the class as I had been in high school. And it was more competitive than I expected. The 5 top guys would elbow the others. "Come on, why are you asking that stupid question? The professor just said it 5 minutes ago. Why are you asking again?" We knew that the first class, the year before ours, started with 30 students, but a year later only 20 were left. So I was sure I was going to be kicked out. I finished the first term with a lousy academic average of 65. To me, it was evidence that I should drop out, and I wanted to. Why continue? I was just prolonging my military service instead of doing the things I really wanted to do. So I went to Hanoch Tzadik, the guy that you have to talk to if you want to leave the program. He was a psychologist. I explained to him that I'm not that good. I was getting a lot of homework and not even getting half of it done by 1 in the morning. Tzadik, who later became one of Israel's best-known professors of psychology and a motivational speaker to executives, convinced him not to quit. He told Nacht he had put a lot of tension and pressure on himself, and that's why he couldn't concentrate. He made him promise that every other day he would run around the campus 5 or 6 miles, a minimum of 3 times a week. Nacht recalls, "Because I was much cooler about it and not pressing myself, my average grades jumped from 65 to 85. I figured if that's the trend, I might even finish with a reasonable average, and I stayed on." Hanoch Tzadik was a very important person in my life and obviously made a huge impact. Tzadik is an appropriate name for a psychologist who helped so many people that would later become crucial to Israel's security. The word tzaddik in Hebrew means righteous. It is often a title sometimes given to biblical figures. In short, a tzaddik is someone who lives by his faith. Hanoch Tzadik notes that for most of the Talpiot students, it was the first time in their lives they needed help, and to some it was a real crisis. Their main problem was dealing with difficulty, not the coursework. "It was my main job to help them," he affirms, but there was no blanket solution for each cadet with a problem. "I didn't really tell them anything at first, I just listened to them. I had to make them believe they will overcome the problems, and it's a very personal thing. I really believe that most of them could overcome it. The ones that left generally did very well later, but it wasn't the right time for them. These were not failures. They just weren't ready for this kind of thing. Getting through Talpiot was never easy, even for those who thrived on the challenge. One such person is Dr. Aviv Tutnauer, one of the few Talpiot graduates to go to medical school after finishing his army service. He's an anesthesiologist specializing in pediatric surgery, and he agreed to be interviewed on a busy day of surgery. We meet in the hospital lobby at Hadassah Medical Center, and we talk in the locker room as he puts on his operating room scrubs. So that he'd never forget it, Tutnauer set his locker combination to the number representing a certain isotope of uranium that can sustain a fission chain reaction. For him, that's a memorable figure. He explains what would happen during surgery, the goal of the operation, and his role. The surgery will be on a 2-year-old boy who has an artificial heart valve needing repair. It will be Dr. Tutnauer's job to sedate the child. Around us, doctors are listening to our interview. The cardiothoracic surgeon stops his pre-operation procedures for a moment and looks at Dr. Tutnauer. He asks in Hebrew, "Who is this person doing the interview, and what's it for?" Tutnauer replies, "It has to do with my Talpiot experience." The surgeon asks in alarm, "Isn't that all top secret?" Tutnauer chuckles, and the interview continues. He tells me that in addition to going through the program, he also served as a commander of the 15th class of Talpiot. He didn't quite realize it when he was a cadet, but it hit him as a commander that educating recruits straight out of high school has advantages. At that age, you're not responsible for a family, no kids, no jobs. You can study until 1 or 2 in the morning if need be, and it often need be. The army gets a class of students who are free and able to learn. The other side of the coin is that as youngsters they have constant complaints. As a cadet, Tutnauer complained about the same things he'd later have to address as a commander. We complained that the lecturers go too fast, and it's unfair because we are tested on more than our counterparts in the university. We cover 30% more, and the response was always that the lecturer will go as fast as his class allows him. If you understand everything, he will go on. We would complain pretty freely about things. We were very cynical. Before the 6th Talpiot class, the commanders of the program had not graduated from the program, and they weren't completely in tune with this new breed of intellectual super soldier. But even once the commanders started coming from the Talpiot ranks, as Tutnauer did, there was still tension between adolescent and adult, student and teacher. As a commander, I had difficult moments with my cadets, but it was much easier for me than for previous commanders. You simply understand the dynamics because you witnessed them. They would complain daily, weekly about the classes, the learning materials, the extracurricular plan, the quality of food, quality of rooms, the cleanliness of rooms, the burden of guarding the building, flaws in building security, whatever, you name it. As a commander, you know there are recurring themes. That's the way it is. That's the way it's always been. The cadets would ask whiny questions like any other teenager. Why are we guarding the building? Tutnauer would answer duly, because we are soldiers and that's what soldiers do. You're given 2 hours a week of guard duty. That doesn't hamper your studying. The issue is closed. As we finish speaking, Tutnauer washes, disinfects, then strides into the operating room. A small patient whose life lies in his hands is waiting. The doctor's description of the Talpiot training reflects the goals set for each of the 3 years of the program. Would you be able to handle the rigors of Talpiot? Here are the expectations Talpiot has for its cadets. First year, goal: build foundations for resolving problems by learning advanced mathematics, physics and computer science. Basic training period of 11 to 12 weeks, followed by 2 semesters of studies lasting up to 34 weeks. 5 to 6 additional weeks of military orientation, visiting the different units and branches of the IDF. Completion of an officer training course. Second year, goal: reach a high level of aptitude in math, physics and computer science. Almost a third of Talpiot graduates earn a degree in computer science. 36 weeks of studies, up to 3 months visiting various branches of the IDF to learn more about the problems and the need for solutions. Rigorous paratrooper training. Third year, goal. Bring all education and training together, sharpen leadership and academic skills. This includes a broad range of courses in the sciences, including electronics, aerodynamics, and system authentication, as well as military technology. Acquire a solid background in military engineering, radar, antennas, and military communication. Take broader range humanities and social science classes at Hebrew University, including history, art, history, philosophy, Jewish thought, and Arabic studies. Decide on a discipline and an expertise. Interview and audition for posts within the Israeli Defense Forces. The project spans all 3 years of Talpiot training. A few times a year, they're asked to develop and then present a project that solves a problem in the national defense spectrum. In essence, it's a warm-up exercise designed to teach them all of the rigors and stages they will later encounter when trying to solve real-life defense dilemmas. For the project, they come up with an idea that solves a defense problem, create a budget for it, and then produce it. They present their problem and the way they've solved it to a group of army officers who are brought in to judge and discuss the projects. On several occasions, officers have been impressed enough with a certain project that they decided to actually develop it. In addition, sometimes producing a project leads to a post-army appointment for a Talpiot graduate. Over the years, it's become commonplace for second-year students to introduce themselves to the IDF's top brass by working on these problems and the solutions. Past projects, which will be discussed later, include an early mock-up of the Iron Dome short-range missile defense shield that has been remarkably effective in knocking missiles out of the air before they reach their targets inside Israel. Another innovation, the Trophy, a tank-mounted device that automatically fires at an incoming projectile in order to protect the crew inside, had its origins in the Talpiot program. All Talpiot classes are assigned advisors to help them through the program from beginning to end. It is the advisor's duty to serve as a contact person and liaison between the students, the army, and the university professors. At the beginning of the program, founder Felix Dotan served as an advisor, a role later carried on by various professors at Hebrew University. The heads of Hebrew University's mathematics, physics and computer science programs also take on outsized roles in advising the cadets and serve as a go-between with the army. Hebrew University deans and rectors have all been integral in the program from its outset. When those 3 years come to an end, the cadet gets a promotion as well as that coveted degree in physics, math, computer science, or all 3. After graduating, most Talpiots will then continue their formal education. Many continue to study at Hebrew University while doing their army service over the next 6 years. The Weizmann Institute of Science is another popular destination. Talpiots who are accepted there often study for master's or doctorate degrees in biology and complex physics. On one floor of Weizmann, Talpiot students have taken over a line of offices where they are studying and experimenting with biotechnology, genetics and biopharm. A third choice for many Talpiot students is Tel Aviv University, where they study advanced engineering and business administration. The Israeli army has always prided itself on being an equal opportunity employer for men and women. As noted in an earlier chapter, Talpiot was a rare exception when the program began and women were not recruited for the first several years. But by the time the 24th class was assembled in 2003, the evidence was clear. The women had arrived and had fully integrated themselves in Israel's most prestigious military program. 11 young women were accepted into the program that year. There have even been several Talpiot marriages. Mazal Tov!